All right. Hi guys, welcome. Let's discuss Taoism and Qi Gong some more. All right. First question. Oh, it's from DJ. Hi DJ. Sifu Adam, you demonstrated before how post training leads to body awareness and how that transforms into being able to take energy from others and either direct it into the ground or back into the person. For example, standing on one leg, having someone push on your arm without moving you, or blocking a punch with one arm and redirecting the energy out the other arm. What are the steps to get to that point? How do you go from post training to being able to do that? What I mentioned above. Thank you. You're welcome. That's a good question. Yeah, every time I demonstrate stuff like that on YouTube, I get tons of emails, right? It's not something that you do drills and vectors of pattern. Like, okay, if someone pushed my arm this way, I absorb it this way and let it out that way. And if someone pushed me this way, then I do something else. Someone pushed me this way. So let's say there's 16 angles of attack that the guy can push you. And you memorize 16 ways to funnel the energy from one arm out the other arm. Now you got to memorize 16 patterns, right? So it's not done like that. It is from post training, but not what people usually think of as post training. Like if you stand like a tree in each one, Tai Chi, or like in most post training we see, you hold the ball, and you got the elastic band in the fingers, you're resting on a ball, you're relaxing but holding the shape, right? You're breathing in and filling in, you hang the spine, you're relaxing the body, you're feeling your vertebrae separate and the spacing between you, inflating the ribs, you're opening the pores, breathing through the bones, rooting into the ground, feeling this point, connecting to the bottom of your feet, all that stuff. And then you post. Basically, you turn your body into a container with a vertical relationship like a plant or a tree. That's what most people think of when they think of post training. But from a classical Taoism point of view, that's really just level one, or the basis, if you will. It's just building the container. You're not really filling it that much yet. You are, but not that much. The next level is where is spontaneous movement, but not the communist era modern type of spontaneous movement where you're shaking your ass off and draining your central nervous system and getting high off it, which is very common. Not that type of shaking. It's more like a smooth, you're not doing it and the stuff is doing you. You can't fake it. It's actually happening. There's this very specific way to get to that point. Yeah. And that is directly the reason why I'm able to do this stuff that you're talking about. I don't memorize 16 ways of redirecting the energy into the ground. Like, you know how sometimes you see me on YouTube, I'm standing on one leg, I'm standing on tiptoe, I'm wiggling my bum, and someone's pushing me, they're obviously bigger than me and they can't move me, or I'm redirecting it, and then I demonstrate it fast and I hit them with it. That's not a technique. That's it's like a quality. Like if a tree or a blade of grass is in there and the wind blows on it, it just starts. The wind blows and then it moves the grass. But the grass is not reading it, redirecting it, or memorizing patterns of movement. Like 16 ways of defending against 16 angles of attack. Right? It's just being a blade of grass, and when the wind blows on it, it starts moving. So you transform your body and your energy into that blade of grass, into that tree. And that won't happen no matter how long you post train. It'll only happen in the second level where, like I was saying, spontaneous movements start to happen. And I learned that, well, actually, it started to happen by itself. And later on, I learned it in the Heaven Mountain tradition that I learned from Master Steve Smith, who learned it from Grandmaster Kim. So if you're interested in training in that system, you can contact Steve Smith, or you can find, it's not the only tradition that does that. There's other traditions that will do that. Also, I offer a program on my website. But I hope that answered your question. It's not about techniques. Got nothing to do with techniques. It does have something to do with post training, but not the popular type of post training. All right, cool. Next question. Oh, before I go, more important than being able to redirect someone and knock them out or break their neck, the idea of this spontaneous movement stuff is actually the most, in my opinion, powerful way for most people to release tension, anxiety, and trauma. Simply because most people, when they post train, although they're packing energy, they're not releasing stuff. That is really deep inside. That's why you can post train a lot, get a lot of power, but you can still be anxious, angry, egotistical, full of pride. A lot of internal martial artists are like that. So just because you build power doesn't mean you're releasing stuff deep inside your emotions. That requires spontaneous movement while you're sitting. And if you can't do it while you're standing, spontaneous movement, you're not doing it when you're sitting. You have to crawl before you can walk, right? And if you can't do it when you're moving, you're not doing it when you're standing. Because it's much harder to do it when you're sitting than it is when you're standing, and much harder in standing than when you're moving. So the spontaneous movement I'm talking about, the byproduct of it is that when someone pushes you, you can fight better. That's what the original question is. But that's just a byproduct. The original purpose of it was for healing purpose. And I just want to underline that, because who cares if you can hit a guy harder? I mean, the important thing is dealing with stuff like suicide, depression, childhood trauma, anxiety, low self-esteem, human suffering. That's what original Taoism was invented for, not just being able to knock somebody out, right? Although that is a useful byproduct, because Taoism did invent many martial arts as well. Okay, so the next question is from, whoa, I can't read that. I'm just going to call Jao or Finendes. Or, okay, I'm screwing it up. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. Okay, intention leads energy. That leads the body. Could you speak about where intention arises from? Sorry to hear about your recent associate issues. Wishing all is well with you and some sort of good that comes out of it. Thanks for your input and insights. Thanks. That means a lot to me. Yeah, this, I'm sure you guys, a lot of you have seen what's going on with the website I used to be associated with. I don't want to talk about that in this Qigong podcast, because I want to keep this purely for Taoism purposes. So if you're interested, you can go watch that clip. There's tons of comments on there, or you can email me. But don't worry too much about me, because you guys are really nice, and I get a lot of emails about that. I'm doing fine. Business is business, and as long as I'm, sitting and standing and doing Qigong, I'm good. I'm good. The other stuff is just red dust. All right, so moving on to the Qigong, it says intention, Yi in Chinese, spelled Y-I, leads the energy. Energy spelled Qi, C-H-I or Q-I, which leads the body. And in Chinese, we like to use Ying or Xing. H-S-I-N-G means shape. Could you speak about where intention arises? Right. So that's the motto in Chinese medicine and also internal martial art. And it's a very general model, which is the intention, your conscious mind, leads the energy through the body, which is bioelectricity and also the chemical. And there's synapses in your central nervous system, which controls the body. So let's say if I want to pick something up, I'm picking up a coffee cup, right? My mind is going to pick up the coffee cup, which sends the electrical signals and the chemicals that goes into my body to contract my muscles to pick up the coffee cup. So that's what this question is about. And now you're asking, where does the intention come from? What you give the command, okay, I want to pick up the coffee cup. Where does that come from? That's what you're saying. Or I want to date this woman. Where does that intention come from? Or I want to get this job, or what have you, right? So from that point of view, it comes from the heart, which is not literally your heart, although it's in your chest area, but it's talking about the energetic factor in your heart, or in physical location, they say is your subconscious mind, right? So basically, the West and the East say pretty much the same thing. So you get your subconscious mind, which is the major factor, influence the motivation of your conscious mind, which moves the electrical and synapses and other chemical factors in your body, which contracts your muscles, which leads to behavior or actual physical movement, which leads to consequence and outcome. If you say it in a Chinese way, it would be the heart leads the intent leads the qi leads the shape, and the shape forms your destiny. So there's a more poetic way to say the exact same thing. Basically, the deep mind leads your superficial conscious mind, your motivation, which leads your body through the electrical signals to form behavior. And your behavior in life or your decisions form your consequence that you have to live with, right? Or your karma or your destiny. So you can use any word you like. You can be more poetic, more Eastern, or you can be more scientific and more Western, but they're saying the same chain of event. So the root of it is, where does it come from? From a Chinese and a Western point of view, subconscious mind, Chinese would be your heart mind, but it's saying the same thing, your deep mind. But from a Taoism point of view, which goes deeper than, say, internal Chinese martial art, and it goes deeper than, say, traditional Chinese medicine, because both of those actually came from Taoism. And if you look at Han Dynasty Taoism, it actually came from Zhou Dynasty, original Taoism. So look at it from that point of view. Let's go all the way to the source, right? Where does what you want in your heart mind come from? Depends on the lens and the channel, like a radio channel, like a knob that you're observing from. And right now I am kind of paraphrasing the work of the great Ram Dass, because I've never seen anyone explain this well in English, right? It's like, okay, so you look at somebody and everyone's unique. Everyone's body's unique. Some people are this way, some people are a lot taller, some people are shorter, and face features different. So that's one radio channel or TV channel you're looking at. You're looking at the physical, right? She's hot, she's not. This person's old, this person's young. So it's uniqueness. Okay. And then you turn the knob, you go to the next channel, and then you go deeper. You're going past the physical, you're going into the mental. Okay, this person's personality is like this. This person's personality is like that. And everyone's personality is different, shaped by their genetics and also their upbringing and also social and emotional factor and education and social media, everything. So it molds this person's behavior and personality. So it's like a layer of an onion. So we're going a little deeper now, past the physical. And then you turn the knob again and you go even deeper. And now you go into like more generalized now. Oh, this person's like this energetic pattern, that energetic pattern. So you pass the personality. And it's hard to communicate energetic patterns. So we give it funny names like year of the tiger, year of the monkey, year of the horse. So now we're talking about zodiac and stuff and the feng shui and the I Ching and all that. Okay, then you go past that knob. You go a little bit deeper and now you go into the field. This thing that contains all that, like your energy field, right? And you turn the knob again, that field goes and you're back in the ocean. So energy make matter. That's what they say in quantum physics and science. As Einstein said, reality is an illusion. The only thing that exists is the field, the energy field. All matter comes from energy. The Taoism says the same thing. All 10,000 things that are unique comes from what is not unique, which is Wu Qi or the Tao or the source or the energy. Buddhism says the same thing. All form came from emptiness or Buddha nature. So all stuff, all matter comes from energy or no stuff or nothingness or Tao or Brahman or Buddha nature or emptiness or dark energy or source energy, whatever you want to call it. There's a million names by different stuff, right? So when we're training in Qigong, what we're trying to do is kind of dissolve to the point where your body feels like it's dropping off, like you don't feel your body, like you're in a dream state or you're in deep sleep. And then you start feeling your bubble, which is your personality, your mind, everything you have ever learned, everything you ever think of. And that's where your motivation comes from, to answer your question. That's you. And then if you keep training and if you keep meditating, if you keep dissolving, that bubble goes poof. And then you kind of merge. Because I talked about that quite a bit in previous episodes, I'm not going to talk about the merging process. But you go back to the source, if you will, and then you return. And that's the whole point of meditating in the traditional Taoist or Buddhist sense. It's not just to calm your mind and feel better. That's just like the warm-up, right? Even though it's popular. So if you look at where your motivation comes from that stuff filtering to your personality, right? But what is predating that is where you came from, which is the source. So they talk about your karma and stuff like that, right? So if you look at your motivation, it's important to examine your motivation so you don't keep repeating the same pattern over and over and over again, which causes you to suffer in your life or causes you to succeed. So when you look at your motivation, you want to go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into here. That's why when you meditate, when you first get to this, you start here to better your immune system and getting stronger and getting juice or getting chi or getting energy, whatever you want to call it. But as you train more and more when you're meditating and you're sitting, you start to kind of open up this area. Before you even get anywhere near here to merge, you start working on this area. Usually around this stage of development, people start to have repressed memories coming up, childhood trauma, a lot of anxiety, depression, repressed anger, regrets, issues of forgiveness. All this stuff that psychology try to deal with is actual energetic patterns in your body. As finally modern science has proven, trauma is held in the body, not the narrative in the brain. All this does is process what's going on, but is actually held in the body. So when you're meditating or doing psychedelics, you actually feel that being released as an energy stuff, right? When that happens, your motivation and pattern of behavior becomes crystal clear because you're like, oh, that's why I do that. That's why I do this, right? Most people, the result they're living with that comes from their behavior, if you go up the chain of events that we're talking about, is rooted in their motivation. But most people don't understand or perceive their own motivation, and that's the only logical explanation of why they're repeating the same pattern over and over again, and they can't break out of the cycle, right? So by doing inner work, rather through therapy, or rather through psychedelics in a shamanistic path, or rather through the mystic path of meditation and prayer, you eventually will have to do the work of unlocking this stuff and examining your motivation. Until you do, you're going to be stuck on a wheel, repeating the same pattern over and over and over again, because everything's driven by motivation. That's your behavior. So this is actually one of the most important questions that I've received, because most people don't go that deep. But it's important to do the work if you're ready for it. That's why I think Qigong is not for everybody. Not everyone can do all the sitting work that's required. Sometimes therapy is better. Sometimes the shamanistic path is better, not the mystic path. Sometimes powerful praying is better. So there's many, many, many ways. Like that's what I love about, like, say, Hinduism, right? Like the classical yoga, because yoga is pretty much kind of hilarious right now. Where, at least in my country, it's basically turned to fancy stretching, but that's not what it was before. Like, even if we don't go into detail, that one of the two main ones is jhana and also bhakti yoga. Bhakti means to worship you and God, right? And jhana means know God. Everything melts into the ocean, merging, finding your true self. But what I love about that is they acknowledge that these two paths are actually one thing. However, because it's a different personality type, one type of yoga is better than the other depending on your personality. So there's not one shoe fit all, right? So I think working on your motivation and letting it come out to examine your pattern of behavior so you don't repeat the same negative cycle based on motivation, you can do it through psychedelic therapy or qigong. But it's important based on your personality to pick the right one, right? And if you do that, you'll probably excel more in a year than you would 20 years going down a path that doesn't really suit you. So, anyways, I'm not quite sure if I answered your question. I'm just babbling now. So, all right, guys, we're out of time today. Please leave your question below and we can talk more about this. And because my goal is not to usually I just give you blanket general answers, right? But if you continue to poke at me and not answer, like ask deeper questions like today, that was a good question, then we can kind of examine what's underneath. And that's when it gets kind of interesting. All right. If you're interested in training with me, follow the link below. It's zanchenlive.com. We study classical Taoism, the principles of how to use it in daily life. We study all the Qigong of laying down, sitting, and standing and moving. And we do that every week. And for more features, follow the link below. Go to the website. Check it out. All right, guys. See you next time.